Hi there, in this video I'm going to talk to you about the settings that I use to get good exposure for wildlife photographs. Taking photographs that are well exposed is really important. Yes, you can recover a certain amount of the image quality when you get the image back in the computer, but if you get it right in camera, it saves so much hassle and it's a much more beneficial way of taking photographs. So in this video, I'm going to give you lots of tips on how you can do that. Hope you're going to find this video useful and it should help you to enjoy your photography. If you're a regular to the channel, you will have heard me talk about my merchandise store. Over at Teespring, I've got a range of merchandise like the t-shirt that I'm wearing now, and by purchasing something from over there, it helps support me to make future content like this. I'm really grateful to everybody that's bought something from over there. If you want to buy something, there's a link down below in the description, so go and check out the new designs that I have. So I'm in my garden shed that's been converted into a bird hide, and what we're going to do today is I'm going to talk about what exposure is and how we can make sure we get the best exposure in camera. In a very basic way, the way that cameras work is light comes in through the lens and the lens focuses the light onto a sensor at the back of the camera. Now, this used to be where the film was in the days of film cameras. Now, predominantly, people use digital cameras. So in the back of the camera is a sensor that picks up that light and transfers it into digital information that is stored on a memory card. But what we need to do as photographers is manipulate that light so it's not too bright and it's not too dark. We want to find the perfect spot just in the middle, and when we get the right amount of light, that is what we call good exposure. Now, to get good exposure requires the manipulation of 3 settings within the camera, and that is shutter speed, aperture and ISO. Now, all of these things affect one another and form what is called the exposure triangle. Now, for the rest of this video, I'm going to assume that you understand what I mean by the terms shutter speed, aperture and ISO. But if you are new to photography and don't know, go and check out this video just up here where I go into them in a lot more depth and really break down with visual aids what shutter speed, aperture and ISO actually mean. So there are lots of ways that you can control the exposure within camera. Some are manual, some are automatic and some are semi-automatic. Now, for the absolute beginner, what I would suggest is leaving your camera on automatic, because that way you stand the best chance of getting a good exposure, because the camera deals with everything. It sorts out the shutter speed and the aperture and the ISO to try and give you what it thinks will be the best exposure. Now, I stress that it gives you what it thinks because the camera is fallible. Not always, depending on the conditions, will it give you the absolute best exposure. So if you were, for instance, shooting in snow, the brightness of the snow can really confuse the exposure meter, and the same thing with really dark conditions, it can get quite confused. So sometimes you do need to override that function. By using auto exposure, you'll run into a problem very quickly if you want to start to try and improve your photographs. You might see wildlife photographs where the background is thrown out of focus and is really blurred, and you can't achieve that and wonder why. Now, this is to do with those 3 settings that we talked about at the beginning. You have to use what is called a very wide aperture, which is a very small f number, to get that out of focus background, and that means that the aperture is very wide, so it's letting in more light. Now, the more light you let in, the more you have to compensate with a slower shutter speed, and this isn't always the best option if you're taking wildlife photographs, because with a slower shutter speed you're much more likely to introduce camera shake into your pictures, or you're likely to just get blurred pictures because the animals are moving. Now, one option is to go full manual, and it's a great exercise if you're getting used to the settings in your camera and how they work and how they affect one another. And you can see very quickly that if you are in full manual mode and slow down the shutter speed, that the image will get brighter, and so you have to compensate for that by making the aperture smaller to let less light in and make that balance again. So it's a really good way of understanding it, and some photographers swear by being in full manual mode all of the time because it allows them to fine-tune the exposure. And this is great when you're taking landscape photographs because the landscape basically isn't moving. The lighting conditions might be changing, but you can fine-tune that exposure to get exactly the look that you want when you're in manual exposure. But it is tricky and it is not easy when you're a beginner. Now, if you do decide to shoot in manual exposure, the most important thing to keep an eye on is the light meter, which is just here. Every camera has one. They're in slightly different places, but they all look pretty much the same. What you're trying to do is get the lines bang in the middle of that meter. If I make the image darker by making the shutter speed faster, then the lines go away from the center and the image goes darker. If I make the shutter speed slower, you can see the lines move back to the center and we've got the correct exposure now, but I can take them the other way by making the shutter speed even slower still, and now the image gets too bright. So if the lines are either side of the meter, that tells you that you're over or underexposed. So you have to adjust the settings to compensate. So I can make the aperture smaller, which will make the image darker, and then I can correct for that by making the shutter speed slower and bringing the exposure back to being correct. So that leaves us with two semi-automatic exposure modes. Now, I have come across people before that think that using the semi-automatic exposure modes is cheating, but you'll find that a lot of professionals will always stay in one of these modes because it just gives you the best chance of getting a good exposure but still have some control over the way that the final image will look. Now, the first semi-automatic exposure mode is shutter priority. Now, on most cameras, this is denoted by an S on the mode dial. On a Canon camera, you'll see that this is denoted by a TV, which stands for time value. Now, what this does is it allows you as the photographer to specify what the shutter speed is going to be set at. So if you are taking pictures of moving animals and you need a fast shutter speed, say a 500th of a second or even higher, you can dial in the shutter speed at say 1,000th of a second, so that will always stay the same. Then what the camera will do is it will adjust the other settings to balance out the exposure, so you always get a good exposure at the correct shutter speed that you require for that shot. The second semi-automatic exposure mode that's available is aperture priority. On the mode dial, this is an A. On a Canon camera, it's an AV. But what this does is it allows you to specify the aperture. Now, I use this all the time when I am taking wildlife shots, and it would be my suggestion to you to help you to improve your shots. But basically, what you can do is tell the camera what aperture you want to stay fixed. So if you want a shallow depth of field, then what you need to do is have a fairly wide aperture, which is a fairly low f number. Now, it's a common misconception that you need the widest aperture that you can possibly to get an out of focus background. With a long lens like the one I've got here, which is a 200 to 500mm lens, I can use an f 6.3 or 7.1 and still get a really diffuse background. So the aperture doesn't have to be really wide, but if you've got something like a 2.8 lens, then you're going to get even more shallow depth of field. But this can lead to a problem, because with that kind of shallow depth of field, what can happen is you can end up getting, say, the tip of the bird's beak in focus, but the eye out of focus, because the depth of field can be really that shallow. So having a slightly narrower aperture, say of an f6.3 or an f7.1, you do tend to get a wider depth of field and get more of your subject in focus. If you are shooting in a semi-automatic exposure mode, then it's really important for you to know where your exposure compensation button is, because this can help you correct what the camera is giving you. Not always will the camera give you the perfect exposure. It will give you what it thinks is the best exposure, but it can often be confused by things like snow or very dark conditions, and so you might have to correct the exposure for what you actually want, and you can do this by pressing the exposure compensation button. So if the camera is giving you a shot that's too dark, you can add in some positive exposure compensation, or if the shot is too bright, then you can dial in some negative exposure compensation, and it's really useful just to correct the camera if it does happen to get it wrong because it's fooled by the conditions. Now, the final setting that we need to consider is ISO. Now, there are two camps of thoughts about ISO. One camp say that manual ISO is the best, whereas others are happy to let the camera float in auto ISO and let the camera decide. Now, there are cases for both. By using manual ISO, basically what you do is you can keep the ISO down to an absolute minimum and reduce the amount of noise that is added to the image. Now, this is really important if your camera doesn't handle ISO very well. Now, I've got a D850 and a Z6 Mark II, and both of those cameras do handle high ISOs pretty well. Now, older cameras can really show up noise at higher ISOs. I have come across some really good noise reduction software that's called DxO Pure Raw, and I've started using that a lot more now, and I'm much happier to let the ISO go up to 1250 or 1600, and I can still get really good pictures after putting it through noise reduction software, and so that becomes less of an issue. So that's something to consider, especially if you want to start using automatic ISO, which allows the exposure to float by changing the ISO automatically. Now, at the moment I'm in aperture priority mode. Now, what this means is I've told the camera that I want a fixed aperture of 5.6, so that is not going to change. The camera will then change the other settings to make sure I get a good exposure. Now, at the moment the camera has decided that a shutter speed of 1/2500th of a second is going to give me a good exposure. Now, the light is going up and down at the moment today because the sun's going in and out behind clouds, so it's quite bright. Now, if the light does get brighter, the shutter speed will get faster to compensate. But what I can do is I can change the aperture, and you will see that the shutter speed changes. As I make the aperture slightly narrower, the shutter speed gets slower to compensate. Now, I'm not changing the shutter speed, I'm only changing the aperture, but the shutter speed is changing to compensate, so the image on the screen looks exactly the same. It's still exposed in the same way. Now, when I get to 500th of a second, you can see now the ISO has gone up, because what I've done is I've set a minimum shutter speed in the auto ISO menu so that it will always then keep a minimum shutter speed as well. So now as I increase the F number, so therefore decreasing the aperture, then the ISO will start to go up. But when it reaches 2000, it's now hit its limit of what I've set for the maximum ISO, and so the ISO now will not get any higher even if I now decrease the aperture. So then we're just down to shutter speed getting slower and slower. So I would still get a shot with 250th of a second, but it's just not ideal. Now, I hope you found that video useful and have learned some things about exposure and my suggested settings. Now, if you want more details on the correct exposure and what all of the settings actually mean in more detail, then I've put a link to another video that I've made down below in the description, so go and check that out. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, let me know down below in the comments, or nip over to my Instagram account, that's at Oakden Photography. Leave me your comments there, and you can also see lots of my pictures. Now, don't forget about my Teespring store, because that really helps support the channel and make sure I can make future content like this. But you don't have to spend any money at all to support the channel. You can do that simply by clicking like, subscribe, and the bell notifications, because that really helps me out and make sure that you don't miss out on any future content. Watch out for next week's video. That goes live on Sunday. In the meantime, you can go and check out this video just up here, but all that's left now is to say stay safe, and I'll see you soon.